Welcome to SonarFeed.
Good evening. How's it going?
It's going. I think this is episode 285. We probably lost count at some point, but the word is it's 285. 3 points tucked away. So, how's it going?
Good. It's been a long time.
It's been a couple weeks, I think, right?
Yeah. We were both traveling, although you weren't traveling during show times, or were you?
No, I was not. I think we all needed a Monday off last Monday for varying reasons.
Yeah.
That was a busy week too.
Yeah.
I think there was a couple of games. There was a trip to Las Vegas. There was all sorts of stuff. So it's been a little nuts. So thank you for joining us here at the Berliner Pub in downtown Renton.
Hello.
On point.
Yeah, it's been a little while since
Right.
we've had that as well.
I'm super good with that. Lisa wants to know if this thing is on. I think it is.
It appears to
as we
be.
can tell. Anyway, so I think we've got a handful of things to talk about tonight.
Yeah.
We could definitely talk about how many games Arriaga actually wants to play for the Sounders. I think that's something we could discuss.
Or how many games the referees want him to play.
Does he only have 4 cards, or has he also gotten another yellow?
He
So
must
it's just
have more
the
than
2 double yellows? I thought he had another card.
He's got to have other yellow cards. I mean, that just
It's a
seems
lot.
to go without saying.
It's a lot of cards.
Yeah.
Like, it seems excessive.
And none of them are actually, I mean, they don't appear to be really egregious yellows.
No.
They're not orangish yellows.
There's some dumb
They're
cards.
fouls, maybe, but they don't, If none of those were yellows, I don't think you'd see too many complaints. But unfortunately, they are, and he is gone again. It doesn't appear they can appeal, although I heard there's maybe some way you can appeal, but my understanding is you can't appeal yellow cards, even if they turn into red cards.
I can't
straight
keep
red
track.
cards. So
I
who
got
knows?
nothing.
Who knows? We'll get some. Maybe we'll figure out.
It
some
doesn't matter
clarification.
at this point anyway,
Yeah.
because our defense is clearly not going to get dramatically better between now and the end of the season, unfortunately. Although I say
2
that, and then
shutouts in
Roman
3
Torres
games.
is going to show up after like 900 games
Yes,
with no
that's
shutouts
true.
at all. So, I don't know. The Torres thing, I think, changes the dynamic a bit. We could probably spend the entire show just talking about his hair.
Oh yes,
Or lack of it.
The shock.
I've actually seen, I saw him warming up on the sidelines, and I was like, who's that guy wearing 29? Oh.
Well, I was actually at practice on would have been Friday before they left, or no, Saturday. Saturday.
It was Saturday, yeah.
And he had just cut his hair the day or night before, whatever. And so they were warming up, and I was counting numbers to see who was out training. And I actually tweeted out that Roman Torres does not appear to be at practice today. He was at practice. He had just shaved his head, and I did not notice.
Good job.
I deleted
journalism
that tweet,
right there.
Yes.
Yeah, you were like,
It's just-
no one saw me
Yes,
post this on the internet.
I think I got away with nobody saying it, except for me admitting to it now. So.
By the way, Rachel says that we're going to have to open the show with, I can't even say it, but it's basically the SonarFeed as opposed to the Champions,
Oh,
which is a good tweet. Good job, Rachel. Anyway, so we've got Roman Torres' hair. Let's prioritize. Roman Torres' hair,
That's clearly number one.
Ariaga's shirt tucked in or not.
That's definitely solid 1A.
Tweets by Sean Wheeler that say things like, Stefan Fry just stole that guy's bicycle, which is amazing. What else is not important that we should talk about tonight? I have not listened to actually, this is important. I have not listened to the Pinot interview yet. Have you had a chance to do that?
No, I have not.
So the Coffee and Valkyries thing, that is a great get.
Yep.
Again, we asked for Pinot months ago, and friend of the show, Dave Clark, was like, you already know the answer to this question.
Just don't even try.
Like, he didn't even say no. He just didn't answer, basically. So, great get for the Coffee and Valkyries folks. So, got to tune into that.
Yes, definitely listen.
But I think we could probably just dig into yesterday. So,
Let's start with the most recent.
an always exciting thing away in San Jose.
Yeah.
Like, you never know what you're going to get. Maybe in the same vein as, like, some of the Cascadia Cup matches. Like, doesn't matter how good or bad either of those teams' form is. It's just interesting, nonetheless. So at super steep, although not the steepest. It seems like the DCU stadium may have a higher,
I'd say
steeper
Toronto.
rake. That was
Well,
pretty steep,
Yeah.
but the rake is pretty steep in DC from the photos I saw.
Yes.
So decent crowd went down for the
Yeah, it looked like a
weekend
very good crowd.
to San
Very good
Jose,
crowd.
which is awesome.
And, away support's been bringing it over the last 2 months or so, give or take. Granted, there's some enticing matchups, but
Sure.
still.
So you didn't go, right?
To San Jose, no.
No, that's right. We talked. We were in the bar.
I was like,
Were you thinking about going? Oh no, you didn't go.
yeah.
Although I will say, my new best friend Jeff Carlisle texted me yesterday. He's like, "Are you in San Jose?" And I'm like, "No."
Yeah, he was there.
He is.
I think he's
he
based
is-
there.
Yeah,
I feel like
maybe
he's there a lot of the
He's in
time.
the Bay, but just chose not to go to this one. Opted out of San Jose. For you?
Well, I was in as part of my world travels. I was in Wenatchee, Washington, for most of last week, and then I had my little kiddo this
Nice.
this weekend.
So parent things.
Yes, I was doing responsible stuff, and so I didn't drop her off until Sunday about noon. So
Okay.
Yeah, I was not going to make it down to.
You know,
San
you never know.
Jose.
Smash and grab.
Yeah, that would be
Sarah
that'd be a fun one.
Shields, Friday night. It was pretty late. She goes, "Just go to San Jose. We're gonna go do some other things. Road trip. It's gonna be a good time. Let's go." And I did look at the flights, and they were not inexpensive. So they weren't terrible, but like,
I feel like San Jose is a decent flight if you have a reasonable lead time to get it, as far as the price is concerned.
yes,
And even kind of on last minute, it's
it's not usually terrible.
Yeah.
But if you look and it's like 400, you're like, no.
No. Yeah. Exactly. That's if it's around 200, then you're starting to speak my language.
Yes, for in and out. So again, great way to end a match. Obviously,
Yeah.
there were moments early on that felt like the previous couple matches where Sounders were getting beat to the ball, like they didn't appear like they wanted to keep it. They were passing directly to San Jose
Yeah.
players, and when that's the offensive players, that's not something you want to deal with. It really did feel like as they got even towards halftime, not just getting into the second half, they appeared to focus and maybe change their tune a little bit, and maybe they just needed to figure out who was in charge out there. And again, no Nico changes the dynamic on the field, but it did feel like they figured it out. They were attacking pretty seriously at points, and it was fun to see everybody pretty involved in the match. Like there's others where it's 3-4 players are pretty dominant. This was like everybody had control of the ball at some point. Jovan Jones starting where he did is fun. Kim, interesting.
I thought they played pretty well for the most part. Certainly much better than DC, where they just, aside from the first 10 minutes of the game, were just kind of out of it.
Yeah.
This game, as you said, they kind of grew into it after a kind of a shaky start, but it wasn't anything crazy. I mean,
No, they weren't getting smoked. I mean, it was just,
I think San Jose is an okay-ish team, and at home they're obviously going to have a little bit, more to say in how they dictate the game. But if they came up here and it was all the Sounders could do to get a draw out of the game. Granted, that was when nobody knew what their head coach Almeida was doing, and had everyone running around, not being able to mark anybody because of the the funky system he runs. But the Sounders had time to scout it, and I think that's why they started Jones, is because they wanted someone who was good on the ball and could go 1v1 and kind of disrupt their marking system. And I didn't think San Jose, they weren't high pressing per se, but I don't know if they really ran the system the way that Almeida typically likes to have them run it, because I don't think the Sounders had too much of a problem. San Jose definitely had their chances. The crossbar obviously was quite helpful to the Sounders once again. But it's not a game that the Sounders didn't deserve to take 3 points away from. But San Jose was probably a little unfortunate not to get at least some result, a tie out of it. I don't think San Jose was so much better than the Sounders that they deserved to get the 3 points.
No, but it's got to be disappointing, especially kind of in the random week that they have between Wondolowski being a San Jose Ultra for the day earlier in the week, and yesterday. I think that's just any added time goal ever is harsh.
It's just crushing. Just so crushing.
That was a great goal.
Yeah.
Like that's a way to win a game,
Mm-hmm.
which was just awesome to see.
Yeah, and Morris, I don't think he was particularly effective. Just going forward, he did a great defensive job, I thought, actually. But he had the one chance that he probably should have put away. He probably didn't get as forward as I would have liked to have seen him. Not so many one-on-one opportunities to take on a defender, and the couple that he did have, he was close to scoring. But aside, I thought he was okay. Victor, I thought was much better as the 10. Played the full 90 then, right? Did he get subbed out?
I don't think he did. I'm going to double check.
But he played, he played basically the entire game. And
that was who knew who came in for.
Okay, so it was close to the end.
Yeah, so 80, 79th.
Yeah, so he got basically a full game, and so that was good to see. And so I thought he was good. And
you got to prioritize. Do you want?
Oh yeah, I definitely agree. Can I get a vodka soda call? And so, like I said, they played much better than they did DC. And granted, the DC game was a function of a long road trip, or a long travel, and they were dealing with Nico not traveling at basically the last minute.
Well, when it's a surprise and you have a lineup change like that, it's a disaster more often than not. Whereas this, they had some time to settle. They practiced together. Even if they had thought that he was tentatively going to be in there,
I don't think he ever was.
No, they clearly had played that Victor was going to be in that role.
Yeah. He trained there all week, so it was, I'm sure.
I thought it was pretty good. There were a couple moments where it was shaky, but I was trying to figure out if I was comparing him to Nico in that situation and what Nico would do, or it was just he's actually a little bit shaky in moments. But I thought he was fine.
Yeah,
it is a different player in that space. There are other players on Sounders that they're kind of like for like. Nico does not have a like. Yeah.
And the thing, obviously, that people focus on is his work rate. He's all over the field. Spencer said he covers like 12 kilometers in a game, which is just insane.
That's crazy.
And they don't have anybody else who can do that because it's not that he's just running around. He's running around and getting the ball and facilitating and getting people in their position. So. Again, he's not just running around like a chicken with his head cut off. He's doing it with a purpose and to create. And nobody else on the team can do what he does.
Yeah.
And that is makes it all the more impressive they were able to get a result on the road in San Jose.
Yeah. Take your points.
Yeah.
So
Eileen has a good question, and I was kind of curious about this. Why Wanda was subbed off at half. There was some speculation that it was because he was not particularly effective, and he wasn't for the half. He is obviously getting up there, and they had a midweek game as well, although he was suspended for that. But I think it must have been just a tactical decision because, again, he didn't really do much to influence the game at all. So that is my guess as to why he didn't play more than a half, but it's still kind of a curious decision given how he's tortured the Sounders over the years.
Yeah.
And it's not do or die for them because other teams in the West can't figure out how to win games, but it would have been a massive 3 points for them to pick up if they could have done it. So it was a curious decision, but Sounders are complaining, I'm sure, to see the last of him for at least the time being.
So maybe we'll come back to Minnesota a little bit later, but real quick, again, it's kind of fun to get to play the team that's ahead of you in the standings.
Yeah.
Moving in with identical records as well. That's kind of an interesting bit.
Yeah.
There, given how MLS is idiotic about doing tiebreakers and other things. Any quick thoughts, quick hits on
Minnesota
upcoming match? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's. Obviously, I'm looking forward to it. I think, the Aussie thing is obviously going to be the main talking point throughout the week. It was looking more interesting a couple of weeks ago before the Sounders had clinched, because obviously there was a scenario where maybe he comes in and the Sounders need a result to get in the playoffs, and he knocks him out with a 30-yard screamer. So it's taken a little bit of, I wouldn't say luster off it, because it's still going to be a massive matchup. Sounders win, obviously gets them second place in 2 home games, and they avoid LAFC. So I think it'll be interesting to see if Nico's, 1, close to ready, and 2, even whether he is or not, whether they roll the dice. Because if he doesn't play the game, it doesn't affect the Sounders in the playoff hunt. It could affect them if they get a home game or 2. But if you rest him, then he's surely not going to be playing for Uruguay during the international break.
Yeah.
Which means you're getting him basically a month of rest and recuperation. And the problem, I think, is that I don't think this injury is going to be healed by the end of the season. So he is, they fitted him with a custom-made flak jacket. It's kind of, not similar to Nuhu's, because Nuhu's is a shoulder thing.
Not the same, right? Yeah.
Not the same, but again, it's not something that he's going to be, wear for a week and then he'll be 100%. I think that there will be he'll need to have something done in the off season, I think, to rectify, because it sounds serious on background. Not serious like he's going to need back surgery per se or anything like that, but it's more serious than just a bruise or something like that. Hence why they've got him in some body armor, essentially.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, it'll be interesting, like I said, to see if they decide to just rest him and just roll the dice, because they've got enough to beat Minnesota at home with the rest of their team.
Yeah,
and it's not a must-win result, must-win game. As long as they get a tie, they'll still get a home game. And obviously that's not ideal.
So it's Sounders at 53, Minnesota at 53. So they would both be at 54.
Minnesota would keep their tie.
Yeah, so
second.
they'd still be in second. But Galaxy could surpass.
Yeah, but that would still get the Sounders.
But they would all be at 54.
Yeah,
yeah.
And the Sounders would be number 4, and they would get a home game. And so that's again, that's what makes it not must win, because you're not you are at risk if you lose the game. But Nico or no, you still have enough, I think, to match up with Minnesota at home.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a gamble, and so again, the good news is they have a full week of training to see where Nico's at, and they now have 2 games where they've run Victor out and looked better in the second game than the first, and he's gotten through it with seemingly no other issues as well.
Well, and Emily points out, let's avoid a home game versus Portland, because if nothing changes, they play Portland right now.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
We've never played Portland before. What's that like?
Yeah. If I had to bet money, I'd bet they don't end up playing Portland. In the first round, just because I think enough craziness will go along, and you've got which is unfortunate about having all these games kick off at the same time, is because I love to watch that San Jose Portland game.
Yes.
Because that's maybe we can talk about that a little bit, just because it's going to be very entertaining and very interesting to watch, just to see, first of all, if they can get Fernandez back from his red card suspension.
Yeah.
They seem to be fairly confident that they can get him back, but he hasn't looked all that great anyway. At some point in the near future, I would say, yeah, absolutely.
Off-camera Merritt Paulson jokes are always welcome.
Yeah. So if he, even if they get him back, again, they've been playing pretty poorly since they've been on this homestand. I think they've dropped what results in like 6 of the 12 games at least, maybe more than that. And then you've got San Jose, who will be coming in desperate, because if they win, they're in, I think.
San Jose wins.
Because they'll jump Portland. Yeah, they'll jump Portland. So they'll be in, and that would probably knock Portland out. Well, potentially.
Eileen really wants to see the Colorado Colorado makes it into the playoffs
scenario
by beating
the
LAFC.
dooms, yes, the chaos
I will
scenario.
say though, if you're LAFC, like, do you go for the jugular? I mean, given how the schedule is right now, you might. But
my thought on that is
I don't know.
that
Take a
they're
nap.
not going to be playing for 3 weeks if they
I
were
would.
to
You
rest.
play your players
Yeah,
at
I
least
think,
for the first half.
I think they will play everybody for at least, as you say, a half. Because yeah, sure, someone can get injured, but again, that can happen in training, so you can't play like that. And again,
By the way, their goal differential is 46.
it's ridiculous. It is
So their
absolutely
goal differential is more goals than Real Salt Lake has scored this season.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane how many. I mean, yeah. Granted, a lot of that happened early in the season and during the midpoint. They've been pretty mediocre actually over the last month or so.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
but
that's point
again, you
too.
still get the points no matter when you play. So, but to your point, I think they'll stick it out and play their starters for the first half, 60 minutes. Maybe they rotate 1 or 2 people, but again, there's no reason for them not to, and you don't want to have your players off for 3 weeks.
So, any thoughts on the East while we're here? Yeah, exactly.
I'm already asleep.
Did you see, by the way, I think I watched a bit of that rivalry game with the Red Bulls and DC United, which,
is barely a
half
rivalry
of
anymore.
sections in the lower bowl were empty.
Yeah.
Like, not right at kick, like 30 minutes in. There were tarped over areas from what was reported.
Oh yeah,
Goff and a few other people reported
they have done. That's a policy now because
It's-
they cannot fill it, and they're going to be making some major seat reductions. I think as a result.
The announcers talking about how, like, they don't like each other off the field and all this stuff. I'm like, they don't actually care.
Yeah.
But the biggest takeaway, I have to say, and again, this could just be length of the season and kind of where he is in general. Rooney, to me, looked dramatically different than he did 3-4 months ago. Like, he was destroying people months ago. And not that he didn't have his moments in this match. His corners were terrible consistently, to the point where they were worse than Nico's corners by a lot. And, like, they were not even making it into the 6. And he looked... maybe it was just how Red Bulls play him, and, like, they focus. They just seemed different in this match, which was boring AF.
Yeah, I did not watch it, and I'm glad I didn't. And it just seems to me that, again, that is a fairly and has been a fairly organic rivalry as far as MLS.
What was it? It was their
history
79th matchup or something. Like, that's a lot.
That's a lot, and
that's how many times those Sounders play Timbers every season.
Yes, so. It is. And it for some reason it has just not. It's not what it was.
What is it? The Atlantic Cup.
The Atlantic Cup. I believe
Ooh.
it is. Yeah. And
Yawn.
I don't know why it's died out. I think it has something to do with the attendance issues at Red Bull and just the lack of relevance in Harrison. I was trying to figure out where they played.
Which is dumb, because it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous stadium from all accounts. I haven't made it to that one yet. And then DC obviously had some dry times, and while they're trying to get out of RFK, and New York City came in and catches the eye of New York, and so maybe the Red Bulls just don't have time for somebody else. But it's just not what it used to be, and it was. Again, I didn't see any of the game. I might catch the highlights just to kind of check out what you were talking about with the just kind of the atmosphere. But yeah, woof! What a non-game.
So speaking of which, so I'm watching the pregame, and they talk about Ben Olsen, and they're like, in his 10th year, and I was like, like, when did that happen? Because didn't he just like retire and like immediately was an assistant or something, right? Like.
Wasn't he
09,
on the
2010,
I was about to say, wasn't he on the men's national team in like 2007-8 era?
So 98 through 07 played 37 matches.
Okay, yeah. So he was,
But retired in 09, 2010,
got the
was
head coach.
Yeah, but like it actually feels like yesterday. Like I remember that happening, and they're like, and he's coach.
Yeah, I guess that was our first year essentially.
10 years.
Yeah, our second year.
Like, how did that happen? And by the way, lasting 10 years at anything in any sports league is super impressive.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's done a pretty decent job
He
given
has.
where they were at. They have the record for the worst record in league history, and they managed to win an Open Cup that year.
It was so good. They're like, oh, we're just going to focus on Open Cup. Like Montreal did that one year where you were like, you're garbage during the regular season. Like, we got this, though. We're going to focus on CCL. Okay.
So, good on him. And, now they've got a nice-ish stadium, if incomplete. And, he's got him in the playoffs again. And, Rooney may or may not be there if he can stay on the field. He won't be there for the season finale because he picked up an accumulation yellow card suspension. So it'll be interesting to see if he's checked out.
I don't think he has. Do that. He's doing the Derby job, right?
Yeah.
That is happening for sure.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
The player manager thing.
Yeah, it's already done.
I can see him turning it on, though, especially with having a week off. I don't know.
He made the Sounders look pretty bad.
He's dominant.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's not the first time he's made the Sounders look really bad.
Yeah.
That is one of the worst friendlies I have ever watched.
Oh,
ever. And I remember the tickets were like $300, like day of. And I was like, maybe I'll go. And then I was like, nah. Watched it on TV. I drank an entire bottle of wine. I'm just like, I'm going to sit here and watch the Sounders get smoked. And they did.
Well, and they didn't get smoked until the second half, basically.
When Wayne Rooney...
1-0 at half, yeah.
Wayne Rooney's like, oh, hi, I got this. Yeah, so no other thoughts on the East other than woof?
Yeah, it's going to be entirely uninteresting.
NYCFC is going to play somewhere.
That is probably the most interesting thing about the East right now is where NYCFC is going to play. Because it highly likely is not going to be Yankee Stadium. In fact, at least if it's MLS Cup, it won't be Yankee Stadium.
So, do they play it? Do they go to Red Bull? Or
I think
do they go to Citi Field?
I think they go Citi Field. I don't think they can handle the optics of having
going to Red Bull.
You go to Red Bull. I think that is just that will not happen. So it is Citi Field or Connecticut.
What a disaster!
Again,
and then what was the other thing? Minnesota scheduled a college football match
on
one of the dates that they won't be able to play that day. I'm like, what are we thinking? Like, it's your stadium.
Yeah, and you booked it because you didn't think you were going to be anywhere near the MLS Club.
So, I kind of sticking on this topic for a minute. Like, let's take a quick peek at these matches. So, SKC Dallas. So Dallas is not in the driver's seat, and SKC is out. So that's a game where you're like, spoiler, we're here to ruin your day.
Yeah.
LAFC Colorado, I think we talked about already. Portland San Jose. Again,
well, I guess we haven't talked about Colorado, who by some miracle has managed to stay alive.
Understands. Yeah.
Well, they've been the best team in the league, record-wise since Frazier took over. Actually, before that, because Connor Casey had them in at least fighting shape, and you got Kai Kamara, who's still pretty good, and they've done a pretty good job of kind of rebuilding that team on the fly. Again, are they going to go into LAFC and get 3 points, even if LAFC rotates? That's a pretty tall order, but it's going to be interesting to watch, I think.
What else is Orlando City, Chicago does not matter.
Oh yeah, that is
good job, Chicago, getting eliminated.
So they can start their move to the field a bit early.
Seriously, start packing now.
Yeah. Well, they probably have. I'm sure they. Well, I think, is that game in Orlando or it's in Orlando? So yeah, they played their last game at Bridgeview, so they're packing up their stuff and they'll probably be at Soldier Field by the end of the week.
So Vancouver RSL. So RSL can move.
Of course, everyone makes fun of Vancouver, and then they go down to LA and put one over on the Galaxy, which I watched that game as the Sounders game was playing. They were playing at the same time, obviously. And so at Fuel, they had one of the TVs on the Vancouver game, and it was just, did I forget my drink?
You did not. Your drink has not arrived.
Yes. You're still waiting on your vodka?
Yeah.
May I have one as well?
Yes. No, I'm going to go pour pour yours for myself.
Thank you.
Vodka soda tall, right?
Yeah. So everyone made fun of Vancouver, but again, they go down there, LA, who can't defend to save their lives, and just what the state of your team when you have battled back to get a point, and you're just throwing everybody forward in the last minutes of the game. I understand you're at home and you don't want to just settle for a draw, but if you had gotten the point, I think that would have put them above Seattle, and basically they would have controlled their own destiny. I guess it would have put them, at 52.
Close. Yes.
So, but that still would have maybe gotten them something over on Minnesota if the results had gone the wrong way. But so you just throw away a point because you have 10 men past your halfway line, and then you get a 2-0 with the goalkeeper, or 2-1 with the goalkeeper, and they slot it home. It was a good finish. So Vancouver could go up at home and certainly do a job and hold RSL.
Yeah. So DC plays Cincinnati.
Oh,
they play at home.
Awful.
Did you see it was on Reddit, the Drake meme for FC Cincinnati, and it was the one where it's like, he's like not into it and into it, like the orange jacket meme, and it's the old FCC icon as like Drake's head. Yeah. And it's, pro rel for MLS. Yeah. And he's like for it when it was like before they were in MLS. And now they're like very much not about it, which was real. That was a really good usage of that.
Yeah. It's pretty,
so that match, like, I don't know. That's just DC's like,
gross.
we're going to run
I don't know
I don't
know how far DC can get up. I think it can maybe get up to fourth or something like that.
They are in fourth. They can get past. They cannot
get
They cannot go any further up.
So they've got, basically, they could lose a home game. So,
in fact, they could play Atlanta or Philly. Oh no, I'm sorry. No, it's the other way around. So they actually have multiple teams that they could play against, depending on whether they win or lose.
But they can't
move
up.
They cannot move up.
They can only move down.
Yeah. What else interesting? Red Bulls can move. They play Montreal. Montreal's out.
Again,
so
not
Red Bulls can move though. They can go up. TFC Columbus.
Again, a game that
can move up. Can actually go down to 7. Columbus is out.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter.
God, those matchups are just terrible.
We talked about Sounders. Galaxy Dynamo, though. That's interesting.
Bringing it back to last year. Do
you remember a month ago when the Dynamo were relevant to the playoff situation? What happened exactly? Wheels
they fired
flew off.
Yeah, they fired their manager, and they did some dumb stuff with their supporter group. Aren't they moving them out? They're trying to consolidate the 12 of them that are left at this point.
Wow. How do you really feel?
Yeah. But to your point, they still they went to they beat someone recently who was reasonably good, and again they knocked the Galaxy out of the playoffs last year at LA when the Galaxy just needed, I think, a point to secure playoff passage. So they've got decent players. They're just a disaster basically everywhere. But on their day, they could certainly put one past LA, who can't defend anybody. So that I would be interested in watching that one again. It's not to keep LA out of the playoffs,
right,
like it was last year. So it's a little less,
but bang on
history, yeah. And could LA? I'm not. How far could LA drop? I'm not sure.
LA can. Let's see. They are 51, so actually, they can move down one.
So it's it's interesting just for the fact that Houston can help the Sounders out in case something goes wrong in the Sounders game, but
like in that situation,
not overly interesting otherwise.
They're playing RSL, it's just who's at home.
It's who's at home, yeah. Well, LA the Galaxy went to RSL, I think, or was it LAFC? One of those two just beat RSL. It was LA Galaxy. Thank you. I'm saying, the Galaxy went to RSL and beat them a couple of weeks ago. So I don't think that's a matchup RSL really wants in LA or not, just because you got Zlatan and Pavone, and they, that's all you need sometimes.
So Philly, New York at Philly.
Now that's
Philly can take second.
Yeah, that's an interesting game because that
NYCFC is in first.
Yeah,
so
they're in first. But the interesting thing is if Philly loses and the Sounders win, the Sounders would host Philly in an MLS Cup. So that is actually of some interest to Sounders fans. And
Except for not caring about Philly.
yeah, but if you make MLS Cup, it'd be nice to be out here for once. And so
yes.
yeah. So that is an interesting game to watch, and it's probably the most interesting game in the East, just because it's two obviously good teams.
Well, but Sounders would host anyone from the bottom four from the East.
Yes.
Right? So
And they could still hop over Atlanta, I think, and Philly as well.
yes, they can, if they both lost.
If they both lost. So Atlanta's got...
They play New England.
So that's another interesting one. So there are a couple of
It is
interesting
because New
matchups in
England
the East.
can't fall out.
Yeah,
but
they already clinched.
If they're either 7th or 6th.
Yeah.
Actually,
Did they get up to...
no, they can't. They
Yeah.
can't they
win
won't surpass Red Bulls.
Yeah, they're gonna get killed.
So, again, total crapshoot. And this 7th team thing has added a whole new dynamic, which is good and bad.
Yeah,
I would
because
say.
again, if Colorado's making the playoffs, they're going to be well under 500, which is not great for just kind of the integrity of the playoffs. You don't want.
When you say integrity
Well,
and MLS,
I
what
had
do you mean by that?
my hands were in my sleeves because I'm a little cold, so I was going to do a sarcastic quote, but I'm a little too cold for that now.
Nice.
So just take the tone of my voice as sarcasm.
Going with it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so good little rundown. If you weren't watching Sounders on Sunday, which match would you watch? Which one would you go to?
All right, so I'd have, based on that rundown, I think there's 3. San Jose, Portland, I think number 1. That's got to be number 1. And then I would go with probably the Philly, New York City FC.
Yeah.
Number 2. And then number 3, maybe go Atlanta, New England, just because those have some impacts. And they're good games. So I'd rank those ahead of, say, like a RSL, Vancouver, which has some impact on the Sounders, but is not likely to be as good of a game.
Yeah, I'm in a similar place.
But yeah, Portland,
Mostly
San
agree.
Jose is clearly the number 1 from an entertainment standpoint.
So before we get into predictions for, which we'll do kind of last tonight, what else should we talk about today?
Well, so we haven't been here for a couple weeks, and there obviously was some news, and maybe I'll let you. Well, we both have supporter things to talk about.
We do.
Which one would you like to talk about first?
I don't know. It
There-
doesn't matter. At this point, it's
why don't
just
you-
a big blur.
Well, since you were on the road first, why don't you lead off?
So, I guess it's about a week and a half ago now. Vegas. So Sean Wheeler and I went out to Las Vegas, with some members from Timber's Army and ISC to talk with Mark Abbott, General Counsel, a couple other folks about Iron Front stuff specifically.
No Don Garber.
No Don Garber. So talk obviously about the imagery, but also about policies and procedures and fan code of conduct going forward. And there were some other asks and conversations we had. So we flew out 2 Thursdays ago. I can't believe that was that long ago already.
Right.
To lovely Las Vegas. And you'll be happy to know that Sean and I dressed like our casual normal selves and everyone else was business casual. We were like, bummer.
Yeah.
That was on purpose. And I would say, and I've posted this and I've shared it with Jeremiah and a handful of other folks. We had a 3+ hour meeting, including some breaks for like decision making and things. The first, call it 75 to 90 minutes, was actually really productive. We had a genuinely good discussion. We got to ask questions about how they came to be with the current fan code of conduct. We learned about the origins of them only banning the Iron Front imagery and no other anything being political, but got to the heart of that. They asked us some questions about why we all felt strongly about that particular icon and some other things. It was genuinely a good dialogue and good discussion, and I think that was the reason. Well, I wanted decisions, but part of the reason to go there was to get some answers, and that happened. So I thought that was really, really good. We all felt that way. Kind of got to the end of that segment of the meeting, and we had our, let's call it, list of demands, essentially. And again, the team that went had all been communicating digitally and on the phone. We actually had someone from Zakir Khan from, is it CAIR, CAIR, is the organization. So it's a lot about like human rights and
Okay, kind of
yeah,
explaining.
but like giving us not just legal guidance really, but like good guidance counselor guidance, like just giving us some suggestions and direction on how to handle dynamics and negotiate and stuff like that, because not everybody that's in the room does that on a regular
Sure.
basis. So that was really, really helpful. We kind of gave them our list of demands. They asked us some clarifying questions, and then we took a break. At that point, it was all going pretty well, generally speaking. We reconvened. Amusingly, Jeff Carlisle from ESPN was sitting in the lobby of this
Yes.
this office center, and we're like, "We're not talking to you now, Jeff. Bye. Like, we're going outside." And it was just funny because he'd get up every time we all left, and we're like, "No, just stop." So we went out and kind of
I know that feeling.
chatted it up, came back in. Ultimately, they told us they were unable to make any specific decisions as of this point. We went back and forth a little bit about it. Generally speaking, Cameron Collins from GFC, Sheba from TA, Bailey from the ISC did, I'd say, a good chunk of the talking. A lot of Cameron and Sheba, so much so that like the table was set up with them in the middle, kind of straight across, and they ran point, and the rest of us were there to kind of listen and chime in as we had additional input. Sean and I did jump in and say we were a little frustrated at the fact that they didn't appear to be able to make a decision, and we ECS had been dealing with the league and the team for 2 months on this specific topic. The TA knew that the Iron Front flag might be banned August of last year, so this isn't new. And by the time we're all in the room, it's my expectation when we all flew ourselves to Las Vegas that maybe they'd be prepared to make a decision.
Yeah.
And they really weren't. And that's okay, because again, moving a Sounders ship is different than moving the league ship. But I think we felt like this wasn't just a let's get in a room and kumbaya, our way through the day. So
Abbott is high up there. So
yeah, I mean, this is no joke.
He's got the if Garber had delegated this decision making to him, I mean, he's the guy that this decision would be delegated to if Garber didn't want to have anything to do with it per se. But there's also the board of governors and all the other owner committees that are out there. So I don't know if you got any guidance on how the decision was made after the fact, but I'd be interested to know who greenlit the decision. And I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
But who greenlit the decision to lift the ban? Was it Abbott? Was there some MLS working group that voted to do this?
I can't say vote. It would not surprise me though if Abbott just made the decision. I will say so. The general counsel that was in the room, Anastasia. I will miss
general counsel for MLS.
For MLS,
okay.
Anastasia Danias, DANIAS, was sitting right next to me for the bulk of the time. The second time we took a break, she led that charge. We were stalemated for a moment, and she's like, had taken some copious notes and was like, we're going to take another break. We're going to go have a discussion. And she, in my opinion, was genuinely interested in making some headway. And what I've said to most folks is, again, I wanted them to decide it was fine, like you can have this imagery. If they said no, that would also have been definitive. Yeah. And they were not doing either.
Yes.
And that's frustrating to me.
Yeah.
So it would not be surprising to me if she were the impetus for a lot of this discussion, because I think she asked really, really great questions. And I could just tell by the way she was like engaging and like the way she took notes and who she was focusing on from our side. She wanted some sort of resolution. And, Sheba's quote, like the exact is like, we're asking you to press pause on the current policy around Iron Front. We know you're not going to roll it back. You're not going to go to the 2017 Code of Conduct or anything. Like, we asked for all that stuff up front. They were like, nope. No. But we were like, we're not telling you to delete the policy. We're saying press pause. And ultimately, that's where we are right now. So when we came back to it a few days later on Tuesday, ultimately at that point, by the time we all got on the phone, we were editing a press release like a joint statement from MLS and the supporter groups. Like the decision was made.
Yeah.
So at some point between Thursday evening and Monday, call it, the league made this decision. And I know that I've spoken with Bart Wiley and other folks, like they've all talked. So they're definitely talking to
100%.
The member clubs involved, but other groups. And I think, I mean, candidly, I will say we were extremely confident about this stuff with them in the room. And it wasn't about making threats, but like Dallas people were talking about popping Iron Front stuff. Like, I don't know if you know anything about Dallas, but not exactly the biggest anti-fascist place. Not they're fascist, but they're not like the stuff we see politically or socially or demographically in Portland and Seattle and Vancouver and other places, especially in the Pacific Northwest, let alone California, is vastly different.
Yeah.
Just like people's attitude and mentality towards things. Again, this is not criticism, education, or anything, political stance even. It's just, it's a different place.
Yeah.
And the fact that their supporter groups were like, we're in, was nuts. Like even some of the stuff in Ohio, I'm like, really? Okay.
Yeah.
And people are all in. And that's where I think the league realized that they had lost the PR battle.
Untenable
and we told them that. We were like, y'all already lost the PR battle, excuse me. Like, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing. And we also, ECS specifically, had shown that we could back off of it because we had that Sunday match. And then on Wednesday, we had flags and stuff in the march. We brought nothing into the stadium. And that was intentional. It was like, we can do two things at one time. And they were like, oh. Because they knew it wasn't going to go away.
Yeah.
And at this point, it was just like, do you want to fight the public relations battle when you're going into the, MLS Cup playoffs presented by Audi? The answer, by the way, is no. So they agreed to just push pause and move on. And we are supposed to reconnect, I think, the week of the 7th. We're going to start that kind of working group that's going to discuss...
November?
October 7th, excuse me. So a week from today. Sometime next week, theoretically, we're supposed to have kind of an initial call to decide, like, who's going to be involved in that and what the, like, reevaluation of fan code of conduct is going to be, where this policy goes in the future, things along those lines. So
I think the teams were starting to push MLS as well. Caitlin Murray had a story, I think, out of Yahoo, where the Sounders and Timbers were...
on the DL quotes, essentially, yeah.
The front offices were starting to get really annoyed with what was going on. I've talked to, Sounders folks on background. I'm sure there's some of the same folks you've talked to.
Yeah.
But, they were like, this is the league's mess. The Sounders obviously have been somewhat in the background since the announcement.
Yep.
And I think that was intentional. Their basic, thought process was this is the league's mess, and so they're the ones that should have to clean it up. But they, the teams, I think, were just starting to see that this was not a situation that was going to go away, number one.
When we saw other
teams, going to
teams
end well for them, number two.
Right. We saw other teams, though, who either told us verbally or in writing or kind of wink, wink, nod, nod ways that they were just not going to enforce this.
Yeah.
And even the last match at Portland before this, so they had, part of the reason we had that quick turn on the second call or the second meeting for Tuesday was they had another match on Wednesday.
Yeah.
We knew we wouldn't be able to do anything before the Sunday match. But at the Sunday match, Sean was actually texting with one of their capo people at halftime, and they were like, security came by and was like, it's cool. Like, they were not enforcing it.
Yeah.
So, for all intents and purposes, I feel like Chicago was one, Portland was one. Sounders, I don't know what they would really do because, again, the stadium has some sway, and there are other tenants in the building. I do want to talk about one thing about the stadium because it's interesting, it's funny, and weird. But other teams, though, seemed like publicly and privately were, digging in a little bit on this topic. The one thing to jump in on is whoever projected the Iron Front on the stadium. Let's just say from what I've heard, it didn't go over well with anyone. And genuinely, ECS did not have anything to do with it. Like, someone just did it. And the company that did it, like, tweeted about it. I was like, okay, like, what do you do in this situation? in my opinion, the stadium and other tenants in the stadium are not happy about it. And there's a weird thing about, again, political imagery on publicly funded buildings.
Yeah.
And even though it's temporary and was turned off ultimately, it was noticed by a lot of people. And I'm curious to see what ramifications come of this, because it does not sound like people were happy. To the point where I had someone say, like, certain musicians it's being threatened that super musicians won't come back to the stadium because of this. And again, that could be empty threat that, like, someone just
seems
decided
like a
to
fairly
throw.
empty threat.
But,
and a lot of this has been, in my opinion, some unwarranted worry about how certain political groups or pundits or activists would react if MLS, not explicitly endorsed, the display of the Iron Front symbol, but didn't actively work to quash it.
Yep.
And yes, there's been some reaction from some rabble-rousers, let's call them.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah, who have
He
decided
hasn't blocked me on Twitter yet, and I don't understand why.
So there's been some complaining, but by and large, since this MLS has made this announcement, have you heard anything of any consequence from anyone complaining about it? Have you gotten any mean tweets from Kellyanne Conway
No.
or
Nothing
other
to that
places
extreme.
in the White House? Yeah, some
There was a
pundits
Fox
have
News.
complained.
Did you watch the Fox News segment? I posted it on my Facebook. John Newhart tagged Heather and me in a Facebook post, and he was like, "Check this segment out, guys," and it's them losing their shit about the Antifa thugs taking over MLS stadiums and stuff, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah, just
I'm pretty violent.
yeah.
Tell me more about what you know about MLS stadiums.
Like, it's super dumb. So nothing really, really specific has come at it. Do I see a significant amount of, not significant, do I see a number of people who are like, I'm giving up my Sounders tickets? Both. Again, there were just as many who before were giving up their tickets pro.
Yeah.
Now there are people who are con, and that's okay. Like, you can have your own difference of opinion. I haven't really seen anything super threatening or whatever, but I will say I have some genuine concerns about Sunday, and given what happened, the last time,
Yes.
a particular rabble-rouser stoked the fire, so to speak. Nothing would surprise me at this point. JJ, that's great. Who would Don Quixote be if there were no windmills? I can kind of bridging from this, unless you want to still talk about this decision. Ultimately, we all got what we wanted, and I'm hopeful that moving forward that this will be productive. I don't think we're going to end up wasting our time talking to MLS over this. I think they realize that they know where the bread is buttered.
Yes.
And that people are prepared to take their toys and go home. And I don't think that was always the case. It's one thing when, like, one supporter group, random place X, us included, like, decides to take their toys and go home. If 27 of them do it, or whatever, like, that's a different discussion.
Yeah.
And I just think the weight changed. And I'm not going to say they gave in. I think they realized that this was not the battle they needed to expend their energy on.
Yes.
Which, again, negotiation 101 is, like, understand. It's every Kenny Rogers playing cards song ever.
Yeah, pretty much.
But, like, kind of before talking about the game, and I think there's some other stuff we can dig into, the other thing I did want to throw out there, and ECS had posted this yesterday, that we, Bada Sounders, are hosting a Know Your Rights workshop Sunday morning at the 90 at 9:30. So it'll be about 90 minutes. Good discussion. Food and drink will be there. It's kind of free. Come one, come all. It's actually something that came from Ugo. He had come to one of our ECS leadership meetings a month or so ago, and he's like, hey, this is a thing I'm working on with various folks in the community and trying to do this in different places. This is something that touches a lot of people, not just in ECS, but in Sounders land, and we felt we could lean in a little bit on
Yeah.
it. And Sounders were like, absolutely happy to open the space. It's a really cool thing, and it's not just for people who might be a DACA recipient or something like that. If you believe in understanding people's rights when it comes to immigration law and other things, this is a cool thing that a bunch of groups got together to do. So I'm excited to see that happen. ECS does not dip its toe into too many like community things, but this is something was like it was about our people, and we felt really, really strongly that needed to happen. So Brandy and Sean and a handful of other folks have been running point on making it come together. And I know it's early on a Sunday, but again, 1 o'clock kick. People
You're
are
gonna be
downtown a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
So yeah, if that's something you're up for, show up at the 9:30 on Sunday morning.
Sounds like a good time.
What else should we talk about?
Oh gosh, well, there's a text from a message from Shannon, Thug Life, related to. I think it has dual meanings based on what's been going on over the last couple of weeks. So, the other issue definitely wanted to chat a little bit about was the aftermath of the DC United game, where some supporters were unfortunately assaulted by, I'll just say DC United supporters, or at least people in DC United gear. I don't want to ascribe any specific supporters to the people who were involved, but it happened after the game, and there are some serious questions I think need to be answered about the incident itself, but
Can
also
I just say,
MLS.
you can't comment on ongoing police investigations.
Yes.
No, anyway, I'm sorry.
Not only the incident, but also just MLS security
Yes.
procedures, which I'm trying to get an answer from. I spoke with someone at MLS HQ, I think the day after. Actually, it might have been the night of, as we were trying to figure out what the hell was going on. And just the procedure itself with respect to what they do to escort supporters of any significant number out of the stadium needs...
Well, it differs at every house.
Yes.
And that's okay, because some have parking lots, some have transit, some
Yes.
have none of either of those things.
And DC is kind of in a middle point of that, because there is a transit center about a mile away from the stadium.
Yep.
But getting there from the stadium is a bit of a hike, and they essentially just relied on the officers that were there to basically take over for them once they got the supporters outside the stadium. But the problem, based on, again, I'm sure we've talked to many of the same people along those lines, is that their procedure inside the stadium was half-assed. And
again, almost every stadium ever.
Yeah.
Like, it's inconsistent.
Mhm.
They don't want to, like, stadiums go, we're going to hold you for 20 minutes, and then they don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Like, enforce it.
Yeah.
And it's important, and I'm of the opinion that it's not just about keep our people safe, it's about keep everyone else's people safe too.
Yeah.
It's like not having opposing supporters in fuel. Like, that's actually more about them, not getting punched in the face for being there.
Yeah.
And again, that's not to accuse anybody of anything, but like, it's good for everyone to have consistency. And I think there's always going to be a difference, because again, like Galaxy, we're in one parking lot or the other. Like, it depends on what's going on at that campus that particular day. But they escort our march to and fro. And, like, it's not that far, but it's a decent hike, ultimately. And there are other places, like Vancouver comes to the bar and walks with us to the stadium.
Yeah.
Not that far.
Again, not that far.
But, like, do we want them to be at the bar? No. Would we rather have the escort in that situation? Actually, yes, because it allows us to cross the streets a lot faster, and it's just a more efficient process. So, at the end of the day, there just needs to be some level of, let's call it minimum standards.
Yes.
And what there isn't is minimum standards. And I know Eileen's in the chat, and Eileen heads up travel for ECS. And again, there are tons of other people other than ECS that travel for Sounders. But she is on most of these calls. I've been on a lot of these calls over the years. Like, I know how it goes, and there's stadia that just get it, and then there's others that are like, our job is over here, and this was a situation where I think, unfortunately, it was like ended at the door, and then you're still on the stadium grounds, unsecured. Whereas like think about LAFC. If you were there a year ago, April, for that first match down there at Bank of California, they met us at Transit and then marched us through that campus in like this wacky direction. They did walk us past their supporter beer garden, which was dumb, but ultimately like they sent a crew to meet a significant size group and made sure we all got to the stadium. It was not close, like as the crow flies.
Yeah.
So it can be done, and this is just where stadium to stadium, they're not all run by the same company. I mean, I know there's
a lot of
handful
it's
of
farmed out to.
so it's the third party security company, or it's the house doesn't agree, or MLS doesn't give guidance. And honestly, we opened the call on Tuesday with Mark Abbott and others, and like he brought this topic up and wanted to get into it. And we had as a group decided to not talk about that because we didn't want to distract or conflagrate, what's the word I want? Conflate those two topics. But they recognized it was an issue, and like again, without commenting on specifics, it's truly an ongoing police investigation.
Yeah, yes.
It's an ongoing league and team investigation. And what I can say is MLS, DCU, and Sounders have been all over this, to the point where that night, when a handful of us had gotten messages that this had happened like 30 seconds earlier, like we were on a text thread with Taylor Graham and Bart Wiley and a handful of other folks, and they were on it in minutes. So the positive to come out of all of this is twofold. I would say, one, the teams in the league understand this is something they have to look at. It's unfortunate to me that this is what that took. But the second bit is that everybody helped each other, both in the moment. People literally were shielding other people from being attacked, and that people have stepped up and tried to do things, whether that's donate to a GoFundMe or help other people get on airplanes and pay their fees or whatever, it was that happened. It was really, really cool to see all of that happen, down to the point where like the Sounders were like, tell us how much money it is and we'll change people's flights. Like they were all over it, and that's great. It's a really, let's say, a positive to come out of a really, really horrible situation.
Yeah. And so that's all great. And what I want to see and what I've been asking MLS for is this going to result in a review of, as people have noted, their standards and impose some minimum on every team in the league as far as away support, because obviously not every game is going to end up with 150 supporters. Sometimes
some games
you get
have
like six.
Yeah.
Yes. You could see Vancouver, Columbus isn't going to have 150 supporters. You might only have one or two. And so, you don't need, you probably don't need a presence there, because it's probably just a couple of people scattered throughout the stadium wearing opposing gear. But if you got 20, even 20 people in a group at a stadium, you probably need to have a couple of security folks there to make sure they get out okay. And that is not a big ask.
It's like the holds need to stay intact. If someone goes out an exit, someone needs to be at that exit. Like on the way out. It can't just be like, you're the last person out of the bar at 2 a.m. and the bar's like, see ya, and they just lock up behind you. Like, it can't be that. Yeah. And I don't believe this is something that's going to occur all the time. But even in this case, like, I'm truly not trying to speculate. We meaning ECS, heard from a non-zero number of people who say that this has happened before in DC. And DC officials and like other folks are like, oh, we've never heard of this before. And it could just be that no one fought back, no one was really injured, or like someone got their scarf or their flag and ran away, and like it didn't turn into a huge altercation. I know this stuff happens elsewhere. Like there are things that happen between NYCFC and Red Bulls. Like it happens in other sports. Yeah. Every Seahawks game ever, and this is not to demean the Seahawks, do you know how many people probably get arrested or get in a fight outside? Like, again, a non-zero number, like every single week.
It's probably double digits every week.
I think, and Eileen points out, like Metro being closed affected the hold and people wanting to rush out the door. Totally. Like there are things that cities need to be big enough to solve for. It's like during the subway series in New York City, in order to get rid of cars on the road and other stuff, New York City is like, subway's free before and after, or after the matches, or after the game, So, like, whether you were going out to Shea Stadium or City or whatever, Shea Stadium at the time, or Yankee Stadium, you just went into the subway. And what they did was they removed Crush. You know, like, you knew the subway was going to, it runs all the time anyway, but they ran extra chains. You didn't have to fight your way to get into it by a particular time. Like, those are easy decisions that cities and organizations like MLS or DCU or whoever can make. And in this case, people were like running to catch the metro, and they shouldn't have had to.
Yeah.
And again, we all live and learn, and Monday Morning Quarterback, or whatever you want to say. But, you know, Eileen said minimum standards. You said minimum standards. Like, and again, you've worked on travel. You understand this. Like, the bar is just going to get raised at this point. It has to, you know.
And part of the problem, obviously, for the DC stadium in particular, is that it's not a finished stadium. You know, talking to people, they don't have a fully functioning security apparatus as far as like surveillance and stuff like that you would normally see. You know, however you feel about that, you know, kind of, you know, security state, you know cameras on.
Also, it's DC.
Yes.
Like,
yeah, that stuff.
There's a camera. Trust me.
Yeah. Oh, yes. But they haven't fleshed out the stadium apparatus, and so those are kind of simple things that they need to do. I mean, some of that has to do with just the fact that they kind of skimped on, you know, the stadium once they finally got it approved to be developed, and they kind of just scaled back on basically everything.
What do they have? Raccoons at RFK? Is it raccoons?
Yeah. So
did they migrate them?
Yeah, I'm sure they'll make their way over there at some point. You know.
So you talked a little bit about questions you've asked, like what? Again, I don't want to get too in the weeds on specifics around people on this, but like, are you hearing anything? Like, is there going to be any guidance given to the league for the playoffs or anything like that, or at this point is it just hold?
It's
firm?
Radio silence at the moment. I plan to follow up this week because I was promised at least some information from the MLS folks. So hopefully they will get back to me. But again, sometimes they're a little slow about wanting that information to get out, especially when it doesn't reflect well on them. But I think this is a serious enough issue where they probably want to, you know, make sure that they've got their ducks in a row, because you don't want to Dodgers. Dodgers Oakland A's or Dodgers Giants, where the guy got killed, or at least you know, in a coma, and you don't want something like that to happen, and that's gonna bring, you know, much worse headlines than.
And this is where, like, I kind of look at
dealing with.
I look at like what we do in Seattle with like the March to the Match, for instance. Like, it's the Sounders have a permit for it. ECS runs it. There's a lot of security around. Like, there are stadium security folks in their jackets on the street, along with the police and other stuff. Like, they consider it part of match day. Like, it's no different than, you know, when Soundwave is playing right outside the stadium, or you're inside the gates at some, you know, pregame concert or whatever the heck it is. Like, they consider it all one thing. Yeah. And what's interesting to me is you can see that other teams don't all think the same way. Yeah. And I know they all collaborate and communicate, and there's a couple of league meetings beginning and end of season. You know, and we've heard from Taylor Graham and others, like, what they share with one another. This has got to be a topic of discussion for them for next year. And I say that both selfishly and as someone who likes to travel and go to matches. Like, it's just unacceptable that people should find themselves in that situation ever. And again, can you guard for every possible eventuality? No.
At some point, you know, people have to leave.
But especially like in a normal route, you know, between a stadium and a metro station or an Uber stand or whatever the heck it is, like, you got to have some level of control, you know. And having seen stuff before where people have been like roughed up or whatever, even outside CenturyLink, like, people had their stickers and stuff taken. And we talked to Sounders about it, and they're like, tell us exactly where outside the stadium it was. Like, I know that once you come around the corner on Occidental, so where you're near like the Nolo and the Quality Athletics there, the moment you can see the stadium can see you. Like, on camera. Like, that's a thing. You know, like, that's where the sharpshooters are on the roof when the president is in town, like that kind of situation. And my expectation is that other stadiums have similar situations. And I feel really bad that it took this happening for us to be having this discussion, because we've been crying about inconsistency for years. And now we're going to get it, but it unfortunately took a lot of
Yeah.
our friends being physically assaulted in order for this to happen.
Yeah, and some of this, again, we're not talking about having, a cop literally posted on every
No.
corner or in every exit, but there's some fairly reasonable things that can be done.
It's called minimums.
Yes, minimums for a reason that can be done. So I'm guessing that MLS, if they're taking it as seriously as we think and hope they are, will come up with a revised policy. And again, not every game is going to have 100 or 200 or 500 or even 20 supporters, but you can do that for what is probably a minimum amount of fuss and money for the most part at each game.
And this
even if it's only two security guys walking out 10 supporters.
But this is the kind of thing where if they don't fix it, it scares people.
Yeah.
Because, and I would say even like the people I'm looking around and seeing here at Berlin are like people who travel, people who like going to matches, people who have been sometimes out of the country to see Sounders, whatever.
Yeah.
There are people who are always going to go no matter what. They're not worried about this sort of thing. And then there are others who are like, I'm not going to go to a game now because that happened.
Yeah.
And that's the part we need to avoid. And I'm, again, hopeful, cautiously optimistic that we will get to that point. I just don't know what it looks like yet. It's maybe the best way to say it. So, so we're at about 8:45. We could talk a little bit about upcoming match. Anything else?
No, I think we covered it. I'm sure we'll have more information as it comes out. As you said, ongoing investigation, so we don't have all of the information at this point.
So this Minnesota team, is coming.
Pretty good.
They have this Ozzy Alonso guy. People like him.
Still pretty good.
Yeah, most days.
Yeah.
We would like him to just trip and fall and like not be good this weekend, though. Let's go for that. I'm fully expecting an exhausting level of people cheering Ozzy Alonso every time he does everything, and I'm not here for this at all. I don't know, but there's a Reddit thread. People are like, is ECS doing TIFO for Ozzy Alonso?
No. WTF?
The answer is, I'm not telling you. It's also no. Have we done that for anyone when they've left and come back? Not like this. Not playing.
No. The answer is no. I was
career. 5 years later, something happens. Ozzy Alonso wants to show up. We can have a conversation.
Yeah.
Eileen is having some fun. I know Sean is having some fun with Christian Roldan El Corazon. Expect. I'm just gonna gently suggest we will hear that in the section this weekend because it's like slight dig.
Yeah. It's gonna be a fun game, I think. Both teams will, obviously want to go for it. Second place is on the line.
Yep.
All those.
Again, no one wants
cliches.
second,
Yeah.
as we learned by that great GIF that was floating
Yes. But as far as the game's concerned, it's going to be entertaining, and I think the Sounders will win. But the game itself, both teams are in the playoffs. Both teams are in a reasonable position. So I don't know if that takes a little luster off the game, because again, fighting for second isn't really, it's not, Sounders Galaxy 2014 last game of the season type stuff.
But like if Galaxy win and they draw, Galaxy are in second, right?
Yeah,
they have 16 wins.
Yeah, the Galaxy would jump
have
both
17.
Minnesota and Seattle.
So
Yes.
you want to win.
Oh yeah,
Like
of course,
you don't,
absolutely.
because there are times like this where you're like, meh, draw, it's cool.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what this is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they really sit people. I think they both are going in.
Yeah, they'll play. Both teams will play everyone who's healthy and in good form, or what have you. I don't think anybody's getting rested for this game, because again, you do have basically 10 days between that game and the playoff game, so there's no reason to rest anybody. Granted, some people will be going off for international duty. Although not as many for the Sounders, I don't think were gone
Can
in
we just
September.
cancel international duty like from now on? Because no.
Or cancel the games that are played during international duty. Probably
Also,
the easiest way to go.
We could have just forfeited that Colorado game, and
Yeah.
it would have been fine.
Yeah, absolutely. It was. Yeah, that game was not much to speak of. But again, it's not really. This game isn't affected by that because again, there's a 10-day break, and again, I don't expect the Sounders are going to lose a whole lot of people to international duty. They'll probably lose Morris and Roldan. Maybe Torres if he gets down there for Panama. It may not be the worst. Well, I guess Torres is probably going to end up playing starting this game. So getting him back fit for the playoffs probably wouldn't hurt to have him get a game for Panama. Knock on wood. Presuming no injuries. And then Rui Diaz didn't get called in. Kenki He didn't get called in, and Nico certainly isn't going to get called in. So they'll maybe Jones goes, and you may lose a couple of 3 players, but not anywhere near as bad as they were going into that Colorado game. So again, as far as the game itself, I think it'll be a good one. I think the Sounders are the better team, even if they haven't played better over recent months. But you're at home, and so you should expect them to win. Ozzy will obviously be a factor. Whether that's good or bad is to be determined. You could definitely see him getting stuck in on one tackle too many. And
yes. I mean, if he wants to take a straight red, I'm very okay with it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we'll see. It's just a tough game for me to get super hyped about because the playoff.
Minnesota.
Yeah.
You're like, wow.
And decision day
again. Worst name ever. I say that professionally. Do you think that he will go to Freddie Montero's coffee shop while he's here for this weekend?
They were pretty close, weren't they?
I think so.
Yeah. Well, obviously Freddie won't be here. He'll be up in Vancouver. But I'm curious when they'll fly into town. I wonder if he comes in a a day early or something like that. That typically doesn't happen in MLS because the training days are all kind of funky.
Did you see the quote from Schmetz on the second yellow to Arriaga?
Second yellow. I mean, yeah.
That I can't argue. The first one he did argue with. He's like, not a yellow. But that's a pretty good Schmetz quote. He's like, second yellow. I mean, yeah.
Like, I don't think they're going to, if there is an appeals process, I don't think, number one, they're going to use it, or number two, they'll win it, more importantly. So, again, they need Torres to be fit anyway, so this is as good a game as any to get him.
Are you going to go to the Roman Torres Hair Museum?
If someone wants to pay me to go to Panama, I'm sure I'd love to go. That was pretty amusing anecdote.
I don't even know what to say.
Yeah.
It's like not the weirdest thing Roman Torres has done. So
he does have a tattoo of himself.
Okay. So predictions.
I'm gonna say.
Have you been impeached yet today?
I have not. Not yet.
Check.
I'm gonna say it's pretty standard by the numbers type game. I think the Sounders will win 2-1. I don't think anything particularly crazy will happen, which is gonna bite me in the ass when 3 people get sent off.
In like the first 12 minutes or something. Yeah. Mass confrontation, minute 2. What happened? Well,
I'll say 2-1.
2-1.
Scores will be for the Sounders. Let's go Rui Diaz and go Roldan for the.
Ooh, and it's going to be a banger.
Yes, Roldan for the game winner.
I'm going to say 2-0. And I definitely have Rui Diaz, and I have Morris because I think he's feeling it right now. Again, diving header is one of the coolest things we've seen Jordan Morris do ever.
Yeah, diving header assist, you mean?
Yes. How cool was that?
Yeah, it was
just
incredible.
Also, it looked fun.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Lisa wants to know what our favorite drink for the playoffs is.
Oh. Like a warm-up drink, pre-funk type drink.
I mean, let's break it down.
No, I'm okay.
Pre-game,
Pre-game drink.
post-game,
Okay.
one of each.
Ah, there you go. Pre-game, I usually go with some type of energy drink and vodka. It's because I'm, very unoriginal these days.
Wow.
Post-game, probably some Temple concoction. Those are always good. Something off their menus, or they've got some fun drinks.
Do you go downstairs or do you
to the
get something
pharmacy?
upstairs? Yeah.
I try to the pharmacy is the way to go. I think if it's open.
Eileen points out, since we skipped fall and went straight to winter.
Yeah, jeez, some type of hot toddy was not too bad. Again, I need to update my wardrobe because it's not
Same, by the way.
warm. Yeah,
Mickey and I are cold.
yeah.
Anyway,
Socks, Tom.
what are socks? These flip-flops are super comfortable.
Oh, that is just a terrible decision.
Anyway, by the way,
Yeah.
you got to vote for these people, right?
It's pretty solid. I like it.
Best candidates ever.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say my drinks for this week, I've had way too much beer recently, and it is not good for me. I generally stick to the Sailor and Diet, but I'm going to say I'm going to have some sort of coffee concoction
Ooh, it's not a bad one.
in the morning. And then post-match, I will have Pacifico because I like lime.
Yeah, actually, I would probably, because the game is early, I think I would change my vote to coffee, like
Just put
Yeah.
something in it
something in it.
that isn't Bailey's.
Yeah, not Bailey's. Whiskey and some cream, and I'm good. Although it kind of coagulates, so it's. you
Ooh,
gotta be
Lisa
careful
points
with
out that Berliner got her hooked on the apple cider with the BSB, which I will
Right.
say there was a point where we were all drinking that here,
that.
and we were like, we should leave
because
because it tastes like candy,
yes.
and you could just have like 96 of them. Carrie rum chata hot buttered rums, mimosas at the 90.
I could dig
Eileen, that
I
would
could
not be
dig
the first time that we brought liquor into the 90 and didn't tell anyone that that's what we were doing. Yeah. Anyway, so good predictions.
Yes.
We both feel good about coming into next week, so we will have a show next week.
Yes.
We've got 4-ish minutes till we theoretically should go off the air. What else should we talk about?
You sound like you have something you'd like to
I
talk about.
I have nothing to say.
Yes.
We could just be done.
Oh,
What just
Alright.
happened?
sorry.
Did something just happen?
It's out there. I don't think it's on.
Oh, I just got something.
Breaking news!
This is on background, so I'm not going to read this. But I just got a note from someone on the Alex Morgan versus U.S. Soccer lawsuit.
I'm going to go. So, JJ wants to know about ideal
So I'm reading this
playoff
real quick.
lineup.
Oh, that's a good one.
That is a good one.
Playoff lineup ideal. Smith and Linderbaum on the outside.
Yep.
I would say Kim and Torres because I'm not.
I'm going to
the
say Kim
Ar-
and Torres.
The
I'm with you on that.
Ariaga, whether
He's
or
a-
not those are
he's
yellow
a
cards.
red waiting to happen.
Yep.
I mean, you could crash into the fence here at the Berliner,
I
but
prefer not to die
Okay.
here on the podcast.
so I'm with you on that back four.
Torres and Kim, certainly in the midfield or in the center back line. Midfield is pretty defensive midfield. There's an argument that you want to move Roldan up a line, but because I'm personally am not overly thrilled with how him and Svensson have paired as a
But they
defensive midfield.
should be the defensive midfielders.
It's the best you've got.
Yeah.
So those two, and then Ladero, Morris, and Rodriguez, obviously, and Meridias up top. So there you go. 4-2-3.
It's a pretty good lineup.
Yeah, it is pretty good.
That's decent.
Again, I'm not thrilled with how that defensive midfielding pairing has performed over the course of the year. I don't think it's quite as athletic, and they don't get quite as stuck in on tackles and breaking up stuff. They've had trouble getting the ball off the offense when they've had it. But again, your other choices, Dallum or Cecchini, and obviously they're bringing Cecchini along very slowly at this point, so that's just not something that he's not gonna start. So it's not worth trying to shoehorn him in just to say so. So
Eileen wants to know if we think Arriaga's more red waiting to happen than Torres, and my answer is
yes,
and it's
but
not
even
close.
No. I mean, how many reds has Torres gotten over the years? Not many.
I mean, if you miss 10 games,
One of
you
them
don't,
one of them was
you don't have to
rescinded.
get a lot of reds.
Well,
Torres
fair
would
enough.
get Straight red.
Yeah.
Not
So
two
this-
yellows.
And by the way, straight red from Torres, I'm actually okay with that because it's probably going to be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who scores the winning penalty in MLS Cup?
Yeah. Sorry, I got distracted. Here
So we
real
have
quick.
no Nuhu.
Yeah, he's suspended. Oh, did he actually get a yellow at the end of the game?
He did.
All right. Well, that's fine.
He got it late.
You've got 3 left backs in, so he can take the week
No
off.
new.
I mean, that's unfortunate if they want to bring someone in to close out the game, but it's fine.
What do you think about the fact that Arriaga had 2 fouls
Both of them yellows.
and both were cards? Cool.
Again, I thought they were both soft, but if that's the way they're calling it, then he's gonna have to adjust his game, that's just the bottom line.
Good question, JJ. What is the ideal playoff road? All right, so let's pretend it stays where it is right now.
Win.
Yeah, there we go.
Win
Wins,
3,
right?
I like that.
win
All
So-
multiple games.
So right now, Sounders play Portland.
Oh,
Okay.
home.
Yeah,
It would be
Sounders
at home. Yeah.
So they'd be the 3-6. So they play the 2. So they play Minnesota, assuming Minnesota.
So Minnesota, Dallas.
Yeah, Minnesota,
Right.
Dallas. So assuming you go chalk, then you play Minnesota. That's a pretty favorable matchup. And then obviously you got to take on LAFC at that point. And assuming you get past that, you want anybody who's not NYCFC, assuming that Atlanta and Philly lose.
I do not want Toronto.
Toronto's
Although Toronto playing here,
yeah, you're gonna get them.
I'm
here.
okay with that.
Either
You're
way.
getting
I
them
just
here.
don't want to play Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be 3 times in 4 years.
I have to say, of the 4, so the bottom 4 in the East, actually I'm okay with any of them. Like DC, Red Bulls, TFC, New England. Again, we could get New England to be first to 6.
New England's given the
6
Sounders
losses,
yes.
though.
Yes.
Yeah, but New England here, MLS Cup, different animal.
Yeah. Oh, that's absolutely true. It's just they have
Although
historically
I have
given
to
the Sounders
say-
fits.
To play Toronto here,
Yeah.
and then it's like best of 3,
Yeah,
that's
kinda
actually
cool.
kind of cool.
There is kind of a cool
Like,
symmetry. Or
Of
circle
those
of life
teams,
type deal.
I honestly would rather play Red Bulls. I don't know why. It's irrational. Are you still reading? Is
Yeah.
anything? Can you talk about this?
Yeah. U.S.
Mickey
Soccer
Turner has
has
secret information.
they filed an opposition brief to the in the Alex Morgan U.S. Soccer lawsuit. U.S. If for those of you who may not know, I'm sure you know about the lawsuit, but Morgan and the 29 U.S. women's national team players have filed to certify as a class action. U.S. Soccer is opposing that, and they are basically saying that there's a bunch of positions that they're laying out. Oh, Jesus, this is a long ass.
Read faster.
Yeah. They're basically arguing that the women's pay should be included in explaining why the men and women make equal amounts of money. And even if you exclude that payment from the NWSL, like the NWSL salaries are subsidized by U.S. Soccer, they're still saying that the women make more than the men. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff here. And they're comparing the women's salaries to the men's salaries and basically saying that the 4 highest paid women make more than the highest paid man. Like each of the 4 highest paid women make more than the highest paid man. And then they go through a bunch of numbers.
Who's the highest paid man right now?
They say it's someone at about $91,000. That's mainly
Michael Bradley.
That's mainly a function of the men not qualifying for the World Cup and therefore not getting the bonuses, whereas the women obviously get their salaries, number one, subsidized, and number two, they got bonuses for winning the World Cup.
Well, the thing I was thinking is the women being like more experienced than a lot of the men on the national team right now.
It's just a function of how
Just
many
better.
appearances they
Yeah,
get.
well, but comparably, if they're being paid,
The women all make about $200,000, or the salaries are around $200 to $250, subsidized by U.S. Soccer, which is why they say that the women make more the same as the men, because the men just get paid on per appearance with the national team. And again, because this is somewhat misleading, because again, the highest earning men's national team player their say made in 2018 was $11,000, and that's because they didn't make the World Cup, and they were just pretty much a disaster, and they brought in a bunch of young players who got like one or two appearances and stuff like that. So again, that's a little misleading, or a lot of misleading. And they note in 2014 when the men made the World Cup, they made $391,000, whereas the women were around $80,000. Again, that was a non-World Cup year for the women, so you want to compare 2014 to the men to 2015 for the women, and when you do that, the men made about $100,000 more than the women.
That's a lot
on average. So they were relatively equal in the off years because women had the victory tour and all that fun stuff.
But so like that counts the victory tour though.
Yeah.
Like so the men's team made 391 in the World Cup year.
The highest earning man.
The highest earning player made 391
in 2014.
The highest earning female player made 249,711.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah. That's Carly Lloyd.
So no, Pino made no 249,711. And they won and had a victory tour, which many of us went to, and I spent like $150 on a ticket. And that's with that. That's nuts.
Yeah, I mean this is a rather large or long email, and there's also a brief which I have not had a chance to read yet.
So you're saying next week we'll talk about this?
Yes. Yeah, so we probably run over. It's only 26 pages, so I could probably get through this tonight. Yeah. So anyway,
right, so
that's
2-1 Sounders.
Yeah.
2-0 Sounders.
Lots of lawsuit talk, I'm sure, will happen tomorrow.
We'll be back next week.
Yeah.
9:30, the 90 Know Your Rights workshop.
Yes.
Please attend. We'd love to have as many people as wanted to come could come out.
Yes.
Anything else?
Oh no, it's always nice to have breaking news on a
breaking news
on a at midnight Eastern time on a Monday or Tuesday, I guess. Or I guess it's 11 o'clock Central Time, which is where Soccer House is located. So
Thanks, Eileen. GoFundMe. It's out there. You can find it. Thanks to all of y'all that have already donated. It was pretty significant. So y'all are great. You sure you don't have anything else you want to talk about?
Well, they dropped friggin' briefs on me at 9 o'clock at night.
Time to go home.
Mm-hmm.
Good night. Thanks, Berliner.
Yes. Oh, did we not say goodbye yet?
We did.